Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the Veteran Crowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Hey, welcome everybody. This is Bob Louthen. Welcome to The Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. Very pleased today to have as my guest Command Sergeant Major Gretchen Evans. She is a very highly decorated veteran, once commanding and overseeing the command of 30,000 troops in Afghanistan. She's probably one of the most decorated female veterans in U.S. history. Gretchen, welcome. Thank you for stepping into the spotlight.
Well, I'm just happy to be here with you, Bob, and any of the listeners, and it's just my honor and privilege to be able to spend some time with you today.
Well, thank you for joining us. You know, you had a 27-year career in the United States Army, but I want to take you back to a difficult day and go back to 2006 when you were injured in a mortar attack. Can you share that day with us?
Yes, we were at the end of this particular deployment. And, you know, like many veterans know, the most dangerous time usually in a deployment are the last 90 days. And the reason for that is that the troops start thinking about what? Going home. They've been gone for a long time, and those last 90 days, everybody's got their short timers calendar, you know, and they're ticking off days by day. And sometimes they tend to lose their focus. And so I was going around and visiting some of my most remote bases, or forward operating bases, if you will, just to do a little bit of morale, saying, look, guys, okay, we're 90 days from going home. I just need you to keep your head on a swivel. Don't lose your concentration. And remember, we're still in a very dangerous place. I know you're anxious to see family members and babies that have been born since you've been gone, and all of those wonderful things that are on their minds. So I had landed via helicopter to this one particular forward operating base very close to the Pakistan border. And I was walking around, you know, just patting soldiers on the back and, you know, trying to make them laugh but yet remind them that we're almost home, but not quite there yet. I'd been on the ground about 10 minutes, and all of a sudden we started taking in mortar rounds, and they were coming in like rain. I mean, like rain. They were just pouring us. So the protocol is, you know, to immediately send out a quick reaction force and to go and eliminate whoever it is that's firing at us. And in the meantime, everybody else that's on this small, you know, encased, fortified piece of land gets in the bunkers until we can stop the mortar rounds from coming in. And the bunkers are concrete and they're reinforced with sandbags. So I was just yelling at my soldiers, get in the bunkers, get in the bunkers. But before I could get myself in the bunker, a round landed to my right. And, you know, it's a sound that you've ever heard one of these rounds hit close by. It's a sound that you'll never forget. So it comes in and it hits the ground and it beds itself really deep into the earth. And then you hear it detonate. And it's just, I'll never forget the sound. And then it explodes. And when it does, it sucks all the oxygen out of the air in that kind of area. And then it throws all that earth and all that metal that was encased in the round and anything else that had been in that round. In this particular case, the round had been homemade, and they had added in razor blades and screws and feces and all kinds of things. It was a nasty round. Anyway, so the two soldiers standing to my right were part of my personal security detachment, and they really absorbed most of the brunt of that explosion, seriously injured. And eyewitnesses say what happened for me, I'm very small. I'm about 5'2" and about 100 pounds. And even with my flak jacket on and my helmet and all that, I'm still not a very big person. They said that the force of that blast threw me horizontally, and then I ended up hitting head first into one of those concrete bunkers that was close by. And, of course, it knocked me out. And the next thing I remember was waking up, lying down in the back of a helicopter with a young medic standing over me. And I thought to myself, the first thought to myself was, well, something has happened, because this is not the way I usually ride in a helicopter, lying down. Usually I'm sitting up with headphones on, communicating with people. And so then I do what probably most soldiers do when something's happened. You look down and do a body check. You're looking to see, okay, is everything still there? And it was. And I was kind of drifting in and out of consciousness, but I could see that the medic try to tell me or try to reassure me with his face and with his actions that I was going to be okay. Anyway, they flew me to Bagram Air Force Base, and then put me on the hospital bird, and then sent me to Landstuhl. And then once I got to Landstuhl, they put me in a coma for a couple of days to do an evaluation of all my injuries. And on the third or fourth day, they woke me up, and there was a young Army doctor standing next to me with a dry erase board, and he was writing something on it, and he flipped it over, and he had written the words, "You're deaf," on a dry erase board. And so I took it from him, and I wiped it off with my hand, and I wrote on the word "forever," and he nodded his head. And in spite of the fact that I was in some pain and that I had some other injuries, at that very second, Bob, I knew for a fact that my 27 career in the United States Army was over. There was no way I was going to be able to serve as a deaf person. And so that moment, my whole life changed. And I thought to myself, I don't have a plan B. Because even though I had 27 years in, I never even thought about retirement. I was 46 years old. I was still young. We were still at war. I wanted to win the war. I wanted to be with my troops. So I didn't have this plan B. This is what I'm going to do when I get out of the military. I was planning on staying, at least until I was 60, until they forced me out. And so all of a sudden I kind of laid there and thought, I don't even know what the next minute's going to hold for me. I don't have a good plan in place.
Hey, Gretchen, you described that day almost as if it was in slow motion.
Yeah, I can remember, yes. It's, there's things in your life, I think both good and not so good, that you never forget. And I remember like yesterday, what I was doing, who I was talking to, it was a nice weather day. It was in the spring, and I remember almost in excruciating detail that day.
So, take us back now, tell us a little bit about young Gretchen, growing up. Did you grow up in Texas?
Yes, sir. I'm a native Texan and proud to say so. I grew up in West Texas in a small town at Abilene. I was out of 4 children, I was number 3, so technically the middle child. My parents died when we were all young. My oldest brother had just turned 21, and he, raised myself and my younger brother because we were still minors until we turned 18. And then the rule was once you hit 18, you were kind of on your own. You needed to make your own way. And so I went to college for a year, tried to support myself and get a college education, but it was difficult to work full time and go to school. I was trying to sell plasma to limit my income. And then one day I thought, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And so I went to the military recruiting station in Austin, Texas, and all the branches were in the same building. So I just went in the first door, which happened to be, the Air Force. And I said, okay, I want to join the Air Force and I want to fly airplanes. And the guy says, sorry, you're too short. You have to be 4. So I walked out and I went to the next door, which was the Marine Corps. And the guy looked at me and he says, you're too small to be a Marine. Okay. He was not interested in me at all. So I went next to the Navy, okay, which was really great because this guy was like excited. I was sitting there and we were talking, and I looked up on the wall and there was a poster of a young sailor in her uniform. And I said, "Is that the uniform you still wear?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "I can't do bell bottom pants." Okay. I grew up in the 70s. I'll never wear those again. And so I said, "Thank you very much for your time, but I just can't go down that road." The next door, of course, was the Army, and I walked in, and he didn't care what size I was, and he was happy to have me. And so I don't know. I always say I don't know if the Army found me or I found the Army, but it was a match made in heaven because it provided me with a passion and purpose in life. And I loved every minute of it, even the sad and the hard times, because I was surrounded by heroes and people who had a higher calling other than themselves. They were serving something bigger than themselves, and that's where that term comes from. People ask all the time. People say, "What do you do?" "Well, I was in the service." That term comes from that when you're in the armed forces, you're serving something other than yourself. You're serving for your country. You're serving the citizens of your country. Sometimes you're serving other countries with humanitarian efforts, and sometimes you're defending those who can't defend themselves. And to me, it was an honorable profession. And my intention was to stay 4 years, get the GI Bill, and get out and go back to college. But that I fell in love with the Army about on day 2.
And now a word about a Veteran Crowd Spotlight sponsor. Cardomax is owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Matson. Cardomax has designed just the right supplements for you and is offering Veteran Crowd an exclusive offer. Buy one, get one free on your first order. Go to cardomax.com and use promo code VeteranCrowd. That's cardomax.com, helping you achieve your max. Now back to your host, Bob Loudon.
Where did you go to basic and what was your initial MOS?
Yeah, so I went to basic at Fort Leonard Wood, Fort Lost in the Woods, we call it. And
Right.
this was in 1979, and they were just now integrating females into male companies. So there was 3 platoons of males and 1 platoon of females. And I didn't have any female drill sergeants. We had all male, and they didn't really, it was awkward for them. They didn't really know what to do with us. And so they just decided they're going to treat us all the same, which was the right answer. But these were guys who had served in Vietnam, so who had stayed in. So they were battle-hardened NCOs, and they were like no nonsense. This is back in the day where they could hit you and stuff, So I was hit in the head with the butt of a rifle more than once, at least.
I at one point was in a reserve unit, but a training unit, and we had drill sergeants, and many of the guys were Vietnam veterans and so forth. And I'll make no comment about the any hazing or anything else that went on in the training. I'm sure it's advanced to great degree, in no small part under leadership from people like yourself.
Well, they from the very first day. What I will say, I'm grateful that I had them as my NCOs, even though they were crazy hard on us, because what they prepared me for going into battle. And had I not had that leadership from the very beginning, those Vietnam guys who took training very serious because they had been in a war, I wouldn't be the soldier that I think that I turned out to be. So I'm grateful for their hard line. It molded me into the person I am today.
You get out, you're medically retired from the Army, and you get out. Talk about the transition, because you have not let moss grow under your feet for the last 15 years now at all.
No, not at all. So once I got my body put back together and got physically healthy, it was time for me to find what's next. And I will say, it was a hard transition. I went in at 19. I was wounded at 46. So almost my whole adult life had been spent in the military, and I lived and breathed the rules and the regulations. I understood the reason for them. I felt comfortable in those parameters, and all of a and I'm thrown into what I consider a world that I had no idea how to navigate. Didn't understand why civilians didn't stand in straight lines. I didn't understand why people were late to meetings. And it was just making me crazy. And so my transition was rocky at first, and I had to really dig deep to keep myself from falling into, a despair. I struggled with that. What's my passion and purpose right now? I'm not a command sergeant major anymore. That was something that I did. It wasn't who I was. Now, who am I? So I started getting involved with veteran-centered organizations and became, hopefully a good mentor to younger troops. What I had on my side after my transition was I had wisdom. I was in my 40s. Some of these young troops, their careers end or in their early 20s, and they don't have the benefit of the wisdom that I had. Also, I had great support. My husband is a veteran as well, and he served 25 years in the Navy. And so he was there undergirding my transition. But lots of troops don't have that. And so I wanted to be on their rope team. I wanted to help them navigate their transition and befriend them and help them navigate these, I call, speed bumps in life. So I did that, and then I wrote a book called Leading from the Front.
I was going to ask you about the book. I haven't had a chance to I'm getting my copy, but let's talk about it. What's that about? Because I can tell you what, there's a lot of people that lead by following in front. That could be another book title.
Yeah, that could be. So really the book is written from my perspective about the amazing men and women that I served with. It's not about me. It's about what I observed in those 27 years of these young men and women doing the most courageous and I don't know, you tell them to do something and, they just do it. And it's not that they're young and they're moldable and they've chosen because, we came in there was no draft. So they wanted to be where they were, at least initially. And so I was just so proud of them. I was amazed by the life that they chose of service. So I wrote stories about them, some of the ones that stuck out in my mind. I changed all the names and all the locations to protect the innocent.
Hey, folks, we're going to pause right there and come back next time. Tune in on Friday morning at 8 a.m. when Gretchen Evans finishes sharing her stories of inspiration. Look forward to having you later this week. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by Veteran Crowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at veterancrowdnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.